Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Kate from Beautiful Light Home, and today I'm going to be talking about Waldorf Toys and what's up with them. So I am sure if you are on social media, you have seen Waldorf Toys before, especially the Grimm's Rainbow. It's very popular. There's a very certain aesthetic that goes along with Waldorf Toys that makes them very photo worthy. So for a lot of people, Waldorf Toys might be your introduction to Waldorf. I know for me at the very beginning, it was one of the only things I had known about Waldorf was their toys. So it could be your introduction, or it could be all you know about Waldorf, and that's okay too. But today I want to talk about two things. What is the purpose of Waldorf Toys? And do kids actually play with them? So one of the reasons why Waldorf toys have a certain aesthetic to them is because they're made of all natural materials. So let's talk about the purpose of the all natural materials. So they're normally made of wood or wool, cotton, silk, all natural fibers. So the reason why is because Waldorf does want to connect children to nature as much as possible. So by using natural elements, there is a better ability to connect the child with nature. In fact, beyond just the toys themselves, a lot of times in a Waldorf classroom or a Waldorf home, you'll see things being used as toys such as stones or pine cones, acorns, sticks, wood logs. So again, it just connects the children with nature better. In addition, a wood or all-natural toy has a warmth to it. So if you've watched my video before on what is Waldorf education, or if you know anything about Waldorf education, you may know that Waldorf education is looking to educate the mind, the body, and the spirit of the child, not just the intellect of the child. They believe that the child is so much more than just their intellect. So by using all natural materials, they do have that warmth to them. And because of that, you're able to have the child respond on a more emotional level. So that's the purpose of the all natural materials. Okay, so now let's talk about what is just the purpose of the toys in general. And if you look around me, you'll see Waldorf toys, and they're very simply created. They're normally just very basic shapes, like these wood slats here. And these are called open-ended toys. And an open-ended toy, actually what Rudolf Steiner said himself, what he wanted toys to be like, was to stimulate the creative powers of the brain. So if you give a child a stick or a wood slat like this, they have to use their imagination and create something and come up with it. This wood slat cannot do the work for them. So an open-ended toy is something you can mold into anything. And that's the purpose of these toys, is to really make sure that they have the least form possible. So the less that it's formed, the better. And Rudolf Steiner actually said in the education of children, he said, if you give a child something that is fully formed already, maybe something that talks or does the work for you, that might have lots of flashing lights and all, he says that there is nothing further for the brain to do. It becomes stunted and dried up instead of expanding itself. So knowing that play is the work of the child, this really puts the children to work. They really have to think and become creative to turn a wood slat or a wood rainbow into something. So some things I like about these open-ended Waldorf toys is that they grow with the child. So for instance, these wood slats, I have a whole bunch of these. When my daughter, I think we got them when my daughter was like about 1 year old, and my son was 3. So my daughter would take these wood slats, and because of her developmental stage, she would line them all up. Whereas my son, who was a little bit older at the time, would build these villages with them. And now they're 3 and 5, and they do completely different things with them. They create ball runs with them. They still create villages, but like more elaborate villages, and all from a slat of wood, essentially. So they really have to put the work in, but it grows with them. So you really only need a few toys because they do grow with them. Another reason why I like them, now we're a homeschool family, so a lot of the time that I see at home is used for educational purposes. This makes them work. It really makes them think and really makes them think outside of the box. Now, with all of this being said, do kids play with Waldorf toys? I have a whole shelf full of them over here. I have Waldorf toys all over the place here, right? So I do consider us to be a Waldorf home. There's always this question of like, are you Waldorf enough? But in reality, my husband and I aren't the only people buying toys for my kids. We don't have just Waldorf toys around our house. We do have some plastic toys around here. My kids love Playmobiles, so they do play with Playmobiles. We have a kitchen that has some plastic pieces to it. So because they have these other things around, do they always go for the wood or natural fiber toys? The answer is no, they don't always go for them. And I think the reason why I love the wood toys is why they don't always go for them. You have to remember, they have to work hard for Waldorf toys. They have to take this wood rainbow. And I know as adults, we're even like, what do you do with this wood rainbow, right? So we're putting that on a child to come up with something. It's work for them to do. So if they have a toy that's already fully formed and they can just kind of tinker with it a little bit, they might want to go for that. So that doesn't mean that my kids don't play with these. They do, but sometimes you have to help them a little bit. So for instance, last Monday, so now it's been almost 2 weeks, I noticed that my kids hadn't really touched these in a couple weeks, which is unusual. They do normally take them out and play with them, but I had noticed that they hadn't touched them in a couple weeks. So in the morning on Monday, I woke up and I just put out a few things in their playroom so that when they came downstairs, it was just a few things. Like I took a couple of these with some boards and I didn't create a full scene. I just left it there for them to complete whatever they wanted to come to their brains. Well, don't you know, they came downstairs, they saw it, and they've been playing with them for about 2 weeks now. They've changed them. They went from building a village to then a ball run, to a balancing station that my son created. My daughter was doing things with like little peg dolls and everything like that. So they've been playing with them nonstop for like 2 weeks now. So my whole purpose of saying this is no, they don't always go for these toys. That's the real talk behind this. But there is a huge value to these toys, and I see that, and so I want to encourage them to play with it. So you might have to, if your children are used to fully formed toys and they're not used to open-ended toys, you may need to help them a little bit. You might have to show them some things that they could do, creating a ball run with it, creating a little village with it, sparking their imagination and their curiosity a bit, and then giving them the space to discover on their own. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an introduction to Waldorf toys, behind the purpose of them, and do kids actually play with them. I really wanted to touch just a little bit more beyond just what the aesthetic is, because there is a huge purpose to them. So hopefully you were able to learn a little bit today, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on open-ended and creative play, and see what kind of toys you're playing with at your house. Thank you. Have a good one. Oh, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe, as I'm going to be going into more Waldorf education tips and tricks for the home.